Good morning, lovelies. Let's talk about addiction. Jesus, coffee. So, this morning we're going to cover a really heavy topic. Because it's kind of on my heart. Honestly, I've been walking through a Devo on YouVersion about addiction because, full disclosure, I felt like I've gone down a slide with food and soda and gotten addicted to them. So I felt that conviction on Sunday when I went to church and we talked about walking with God again after we've sinned and stopped, and the things that we do and the ensnaring and entrapping sins that we have. And I felt that conviction because I felt like I've gone down that slippery slope with soda and food, and they'd become an idol, and I'd become addicted. And I started to see the results of that, the fruits of that addiction on the scale, as I elevated back up to 240. So it was time for me to stop. It was time for me to face that, bring that to God and say, here you go. I'm in need of your help. I'm weak. So let's go over addiction. So what are the effects of addiction? First of all, what is addiction? Right? Let's break it down. What is an addiction? So an addiction biblically is a sin. Okay? So is it a disease? Absolutely, it's a disease. But it's at the root, it's a sin. An addiction is when anything, whatever that is, moves God out of his seat on the throne and we put it there. And God's not first and center in our lives. Is an addiction very similar to idolatry? Good morning, son. Thank you for dinner last night, buddy. You are amazing. Such a loving son. An addiction is something that takes that seat on the throne from God. That's his throne, his seat. That's where he should be. But an idol and an addiction is when we're putting something else there. Food, pornography, drugs, alcohol, soda, whatever that looks like. But you're putting something else there. Good morning, Kyle. What's up, buddy? And that has effects on us. That has spiritual effects on us. That has effects in our mind. And it has effects physically. So what are the effects spiritually? Well, the effects spiritually is you're replacing God with something else. You're putting something else on that throne. And that's not what we're supposed to do. Your mind, good morning, Tasha. Your mind, your mind is driving your thoughts. You have repeated patterns of poor decisions that are making the addiction stronger and disrupting your thinking. And physically, those consequences are your brain actually gets rewired. And two, those other, there could be other physical consequences, such as you heard me mention, weight elevated. You get stressed. You don't sleep. You eat, which causes your weight to go up. So, I want to look at the human body, and I want to look at it like a computer, because we can all relate to computers. So our brain is like the hardware. Okay? So the mouse, the monitor, the hard drive, that's our brain. Okay? The mind, the consciousness, the soul is like the operating system. Not just the physical brain, but the mind. what's actually happening, what controls our thoughts, our drives, our spirit, our soul, moreover, makes the decisions, and it tells the hardware, our body, what to do. So the spirit, our spirit, is our connection to God. But in relation to a computer, that's much like your Wi-Fi or your connection to the internet. That computer, without being connected to the internet, really nowadays doesn't do us any good. Has very, very limited to no use. So much like our connection to God, our life without connection to God does very little to no good. Right? So our life works best when our mind, body, and spirit are all in sync. It's like, if they're not in sync, it's like trying to take an iPhone, Android. It's like trying to take an iPhone operating system and putting it on an Android. It's just not going to work. It's not going to happen because they don't work together. And that's kind of what happens when our mind, body, and spirit aren't in alignment. We just kind of stumble through life. You know, God really is the designer and the manufacturer of our mind, body, and spirit. And when they all work together and all work in alignment with His plan and purpose, everything goes great. But it doesn't always work like that. And when it doesn't work like that, and we have that addiction and we have that struggle, I want to leave you with a passage that is such a great, and this is such a beautiful passage because it tells us exactly what to do when we're dealing with that. We talked about the other day about Jesus in Revelation 3, Jesus' an invitation. How He tells you He stands at the door and knocks. And when you hear His voice and let Him in, He'll come in and dine with you, and you with Him. But I want you to hear this when you're struggling with something, and you don't have to go it alone, guys. You don't ever have to go it alone. Ever. Hear this. And I want you to listen to this. Don't look, listen. Close your eyes and let your soul hear this. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Do you hear that invitation? Don't go it alone. Come to me. Bring it to me. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter how shameful it is. Bring it to me. What did He say to the woman at the well? He told the woman at the well, go and get your husband. Knowing she wasn't married. She'd had 5 husbands. All He was saying was, bring it to me. Doesn't matter how shameful it is. Doesn't matter how beaten you are. Doesn't matter what the enemy's doing, how bad the enemy's beating you. That's the enemy. That's not Jesus. He's saying, come to me. Bring it to me. Give it to me. It's mine. It's my fight. Bring it to me. I want my fight. And He'll do it. But you need to bring it to Him. He's asking you to come to Him. So do it. Don't spend your life walking apart from Him. Be in Him. Right? Bring that addiction to Him. Let Him handle it. It's His anyway. Life changes when you hand it to Him. So, I love you guys. I know He loves you like crazy. And we'll be back Monday with whatever Dad wants to talk about.